All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us wherever you're watching from. As you all know, if you can see in the background, we do have a special show on tap for you guys, as we will be talking about the Disney film known as Operation Dumbo Drop. So let us dive in, shall we? Now getting into the little synopsis about the film itself. Set during the Vietnam War, the film, directed by Simon Windsor, follows a U.S. Army officer and his unit in their efforts to successfully deliver a live elephant to a village that they are trying to keep the loyalty of to its due to its strategic importance. Released in July of 1995, the film has permeated many of the minds of kids who were around in the 90s. The film goers during that time, featuring an all-star cast as well as an unexpectedly serious subject for a Disney film, I might add. I thought it would be worth the trip to go back down memory lane with this film as it enters its 30th anniversary next month. However, I will not be alone in talking about today's film. Just as you can see in the background, we do have a special guest with us who needs no introduction, as they have a master career across TV and film over 40 years, the last 40 years. So whether we're talking about Parker Lewis Can't Lose, or The Stand, to, of course, Stargate SG-1, or even I know we've talked about it here on the show, Drop Zone. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show Mr. Corin Nemec. Let me get him on now. Give me one moment here. Corin, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
What's happening? How are you, Brandon?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. So, as I said, I wanted to be able to hop down memory lane. It's crazy to believe that it has been 30 years. But
Bro, tell me about it.
um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So, just to dive in and just to talk about the film and hit the ground running, can you talk a bit about getting involved with this film and being, assembled with this film, so to speak?
Yeah, this was just a standard audition. I went, I got the audition. I mean, so many of my friends were auditioning for that role as well. Jason and Jeremy London, I think both of them might have auditioned for it. I know one of them did, and I believe David Arquette auditioned for it. Stephen Dorff may have auditioned for it. Um, and then, man, I mean, it just seemed like everybody in my circle was auditioning for it, and the character was actually written, if I remember correctly, the character was written as being heavy set,
Okay.
and none of us were, though. So they must have, at some point during the audition process, they must have decided, let's go with a different look for the character, or they couldn't find somebody that they liked. But and so I just went and auditioned for it, and I knew that the character was from Iowa.
Right.
I just, I envisioned. I mean, I was from the South. I know Iowa's not the South, but I was from the South. I had family that were really, simple Southern folk. Nothing too complicated about them. The naivete is endearing. You know what I'm saying? And and so that's what I really went in with. That character was just gave him this corn pone Iowa accent that was probably a little absurd. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
not going for like a serious, heavy, dramatic accent where the quality sounds very, very real, but real enough where people buy it, but also corny enough where it's one of those classic accents from the U.S. that you hear in movies, and I went in. I auditioned for it, and I know we did the scene where they walk in on me, and it's like the first introduction
Blue.
scene for Lawrence Farley when I'm
Yeah.
doing and we came up with that gag on the spot. I forget what exactly was scripted. that was going on, but we came up with the glue gag while we were on set. And but yeah, I did that scene. And I think I might have done one other scene, and I got the call back, and then I went and tested for it, and 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 there was a bunch of other fairly well known actors at the time that were testing for it as well. So I it was I didn't know, I had no idea whether this part could be mine or not because everybody else was so talented, and
Sure.
I got the job, so I was like super stoked because what a cast, Dennis Leary,
Yes.
Dougie Doug at the time, what a great comedic actor,
Danny Glover.
and Danny Glover and Ray Liotta, and at that time too, in the mid '90s, there when these guys were just kind of at all of their heights, their different kind of heights, with from Dennis Leary to Ray Liotta and Danny Glover. All three of those guys were just really at a pinnacle right there in their careers. So what a cast to be associated with. The movie didn't do as well as they were expecting, and a lot of people, including myself to a certain degree, blame the promotional campaign they did for it because they just did this poster of a big elephant butt that was camouflaged,
Right,
and
right, right,
and so
right.
you couldn't really tell like what is this movie, what's it
Yeah,
about. I see their
yeah.
names, but in the classic Disney poster, um, advertisement, normally you get like some images from the movie. You get kind of like a painted form of the poster. You see some action, you see the characters' faces, and it draws you into the story, and this one just puts you right out of the story. As soon as you look at it, you have no idea what time period it is, what's going on. Operation Dumbo Drop, I don't get it. I see a camouflage elephant butt. I see the names, but what is this?
Right,
So
right, right.
I I think that had a little bit to do with it, if not a lot, because it was such a phenomenal movie. Simon Windsor did such a great job, and it was just a magical shoot. I was over there in Thailand for 5.5 months, and then another 2.5 or so weeks in Florida, maybe doing some pickup shots, and then all the green screen work we did out in LA was like another couple of weeks. I mean, I was on this film for over half a year. It was
Sure.
it was
Well,
a
let
major
me ask this. I was gonna say, let me ask this. In terms of like the character, Farley in and of himself, as you had mentioned at the top, the character, we learn, and it's shared to us that he's, our Iowa guy. Comes from a very rural background of being raised on a farm, and ironically, even though he's raised on a farm, he's not great with animals. Hence, we get the implication as to why he
exactly.
joined the military. So I'm curious, what did that preparation look like, of getting into the head of being military? Like, was there anything in regards to like boot camp that you guys did in terms of getting into that mindset to accurately portray that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think if the production knew what they were putting us through in the jungle, they would have canceled the military training immediately. We went out there with our guy, our special advisor, from the special forces, this guy Jared, and then the guy who wrote the story, who was ex-military, and then we had. Um, a guy from, I think from the Australian military or something. I don't know what the hell he was doing up there, but and then we had a bunch of dudes from the Thai military, and we went out to the the film site where we shot the old French chateau out on the rice fields. They
Okay.
built that whole set, but we went out there. That's where because there were some other outbuildings that they had built around there and everything, and we basically set it up like it was our base camp, and we had to eat MREs, the military rations, MRIs, whatever they're called. We had to eat those damn things. We had to sleep in hammocks, out in the jungle. The mosquitoes were horrible. We did real military training. We had, and real M16s, but with blank bullets, and we were in full military, uniform and everything. And they split up the Thai military. They made like half of them the North Vietnamese forces, and then they gave us some as well. And they acted as our Montagnard forces, our in country forces, and we would go on these training missions during the day. We'd go and stake out like a smuggler's trail, or we heard that there was a mortar site up on top of a hill, or whatever one. And then one night there was they came and attacked our village where we were staying, and so we get out there, and we just go over a bunch of things. We go over the guns and make sure everybody knows that the bullets are blanks, but we're firing real blanks during all these scenarios. It was,
Wow.
And if you're really close to a blank when it goes off,
It's still,
it can do a lot of damage, if not kill you.
Sure.
But so we got out there. We stayed the first night. Everybody was kind of having fun. We had a campfire. Dennis Leary was kind of into it, but he was sort of, Dennis was not. He was like, I don't really get. I'm not supposed to be a military guy. My guy
Right.
carries an attaché, a briefcase,
Right.
and this isn't supposed to be my thing. I don't need to know anything about this.
Right.
I don't know what I'm doing here. And and in a jovial way, he was on a stand-up routine. The rest of us were into it. Me, Dougie Doug, Dennis Leary, and Ray Liotta. We were all really into it. So the next day we go on our mission, and we're supposed to be out there for a full week. So we do our mission the next day in Thailand. Yeah. So we do our mission the next day, and we go and we climb up this mountain in the middle of the jungle. We're sneaking up there because we're trying to find this mortar, where these guys are supposed to be launching mortars from. It made me realize how easy it is to die in battle. You know what I'm saying? So, we're sneaking up to the top of this hill, and we can hear some talking. And I don't know, to this day, I'm not sure if I'm pretty sure they set us up, but so they must have heard us coming for a long time. There's no way that we were that quiet, traipsing up a freaking mountain, and with Dennis Leary. There's no way we were that quiet. Guaranteed he shouted some shit out that he wasn't supposed to say. But so we get to the top of this rise, and we can hear these guys over this little rise. So we decide, we're going to kind of do this ambush or whatever, and we head up and just capture these guys, like we're playing capture the flag. And we head up over this rise, and sure, and there's just two guys there, and they're like, oh, they raise their hands or whatever. And then as soon as that happens, from the tree line, all these shots start ringing out, and those guys are ducking down. And so we immediately turned around and hauled ass back the way we came, just stopping and shooting. And now they've taken back over their rise. They got the high ground. They're firing down on us. We're firing back up at them. We're running through the jungle. People are falling down the side of the hill. I mean, it was just total pandemonium and chaos. And I didn't even really think about the fact that of how many probably poisonous insects, spiders, and plants were all around us too, that I didn't even consider. I don't even remember considering it. So until the next day. But anyway, so we get back from this mission, and now we've been gone pretty much all day. I mean, we're disgusting. We're absolutely filthy. There's nowhere to shower. We have to eat those MREs or whatever they are, the military rations, out of these bags. And it really sets in for Dennis Leary. He's like, this is not what I signed up for. And we have 4 or 5 more days of this that we're supposed to be doing, And so the next morning,
I was going to say, speaking of that, is there, along the lines of what you're saying now, is there any truth to I guess there had been information surrounding the film where I guess Glover and Leota had like pictures of like I suppose of like a home that they were about to buy or something. Was it? Have you heard this story? Like, or is there any truth to it? Where like I guess it was just as you said, there were moments where the shoot was difficult or a little more arduous, and the way that they tried to power themselves through it is I guess they were in the process of getting, I guess, a home, and they had a picture of that property or something. Is there any truth to that, or
Well, that's certainly possible. You know, I don't know. I mean, I know that we were all over there for such a long period of time, and we stayed in some amazing areas of Thailand. And it's a country that's easy to fall in love with. You know, especially when you're
sure?
there that long. You know, the food is great, the people are great, the countryside's beautiful, and obviously it's very inexpensive to live there. So
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think there was anybody on the entire production that didn't have thoughts of like, wow, man, I could live here, you know. But so just back to the training real quick. So we did, you
sure.
know, we get back and the next morning it's like it's not even sun up yet. I mean, the sun's barely just coming up. It's just starting to turn pink, and we're in one of the hooches, you know, catching some Z's, and suddenly we hear the van start up that drove us all out there. We hear this van start up, and we kind of wake up and go and look out the windows of the hooches and just see the van just like driving off, disappearing into the jungle. And we're like, what the hell is that? You know, like we're stranded out here, you know, like, and everybody starts stirring and waking up, and we're like looking around, we're like, yo, where's Dennis? And it turned out it was Dennis Leary. He stole the van and before anybody woke up and drove back to the hotel
Oh
and left
wow.
us out there. So the next day, you know, we go on another one of these crazy missions. This one was going to stake out a smuggler's trail, and some really cool things happened. Like, you know, like while we were staking out this smuggler's trail, we had the high ground, and we're looking down this. It's an actual smuggler's trail, a real one up near the border of Myanmar, which used to be Burma, and so we're staked out. About each one of us was maybe 10 to 15 yards apart from each other in this
Yeah,
long line, and you know, and then so when the smugglers come through, and when they get to the last person in line that's the furthest down in the direction they're walking, when they reach him, that person starts to fire. They start shooting on them, and then that triggers everybody else to fire. And then you fire in this kind of sweeping back and forth motion. So every 10, 15 yards, you have another M16 fully automatic gun just sweeping back and forth. So you have this constant barrage of just bullets just going, you know. I was like,
wow,
dude, that's terrifying. So
wow.
so we're up there and we're staked out, and we're waiting on these guys, and we're up there for hours, man, just sitting in the jungle. That's when I started looking around and seeing all the big insects and crazy caterpillars and huge ants and all this stuff. And I was like, bro, what's going on here? And so we hear this kind of like loud wooden clopping sound, almost like you hear like horse hooves on cobblestone. It was weird. I was like, what is that? You know? And from around the bend at right at head height where we were come these elephants, because we're up on the high ground looking down at this trail. And so they're walking along, and they're like right now they're right across from us, like literally. Once you get out of the jungle area where we were hiding in, you're only talking about maybe 8 feet or so, 8-10 feet to where the elephant is. So that's a very short distance, really. And we're in there. We got the face makeup on. We're all in camouflage and hunkered down in there. And about 5 of these elephants with all the gear on the back and their elephant guy riding them, they all go walking by, and the noise was these big wooden bells they have on that are just banging and clopping back and forth on each other. And I was sitting there, and all 5 elephants went by, and they just kept going, and they never saw us. And that's when I was really tripping out. I was like, I mean, I'm right there. Literally, the guy's right at head height, 8 feet away. All he has to do is look over to his right, right through the bushes, and I'm just sitting there, you know. I was like this, and they didn't see us at all. It was really wild. I was like, that's really a trip, you know. And so, sure enough, a while after them, the North Viet Cong come by, and we get into this big shootout. And then we got to go down. We got to check the bodies. We got to look for clues. We got to try find out if they have any intel on them and all this stuff. And so we finished that whole operation, and me and Ray Liotta and Dougie Doug and Dennis and Danny Glover, we're walking back down this dirt road back toward where we were camped out at, you know. And we're just filthy, disgusting. Just we look like, I mean, we look like special forces military dudes, white, you know, a bunch of American guys in American, you know, gear, M16s, all this stuff, just walking down this dirt road. And this Thai dude comes up over the rise on a motorcycle. And he's like, yeah, he's cruising along, and he sees us, and he just slams on the brakes, like just skids out. And he's like looking at us. He just turns around and goes the other direction and just hauled ass. And we're like, dude, do we look that crazy? And so, anyway, we get back to back to where we're at. Now we're on night 3. And you realize just how tough military dudes are. Because night 3, we get back and we got to eat this bagged food again. None of us have had a shower in 3 days. We've been doing nothing but sweating all day. We're disgusting. It was no joke. And so we get back there and we're sitting around the campfire, looking at these military rations, just pissed off at Dennis Leary and jealous that he left, you know. And suddenly we hear the van coming back, and here it comes through the jungle. We see the lights and everything. We're like, oh, dude, Dennis, he came back. Maybe some emergency happened. He didn't abandon us or whatever. So the van pulls up, and Dennis wasn't in it. He did abandon us. But who was in it? Who was in it was a driver and one of the staff from the hotel we were staying at. And they jump out and they open up the back. And he sent over, I mean, so much food, a whole van full of like all the best Thai food, and a huge cooler full of beer and Cokes and all this stuff. And like, I mean, he like hooked us up. I mean, it was so even though
he made up for abandoning you guys. He made up for it.
Yeah, he made up for it. Yeah, dude. So yeah, and then the I'll wrap it up real quick. But then the next day, we ended up calling it on day 5. We're supposed to be there for 7 days, but the next day we spent the day basically getting our whole area set up for an imminent attack that we were expecting to happen. And mind you, only about maybe like eight or so miles away from where our location was is the border of Burma or Myanmar. Yeah. And there's a between the Corin people, who are like these native kind of tribes that live up in the jungles and everything. There is a like a liberation movement, and there's border skirmishes, and then there's also the drug dealers, and there's they have their own cartels there and everything, and that's a very hot border. And so there, firefights and stuff can happen on that border quite often, and back then at least. And so we get set up, we booby trap our whole area throughout the day and everything, and then that night we're supposed to be getting attacked, and sure enough we get attacked that night, and they're launching, dude, these Thai military dudes, they're launching, like, we had fireworks, like so they would like launch bottle rockets at us and stuff, and we're like getting like bottle rockets are blowing up in the middle of our area, and like and we had it all booby traps. So if they hit one of our booby traps out there, they had to scream like they got killed or something, so we'd know where they were in the jungle, and we'd open up a fire. And so this massive firefight starts up, and there's just a full-blown war happening. It was wild. I mean, we could have felt it was like Tropic Thunder, you know what I'm saying? And so we're in this full-blown firefight, and then suddenly we start hearing this other sound, like further away, like this loud sort of vacuous, like boom, and then we heard like full on explosions. I go whoosh, and suddenly the top Thai military dude, he like stops the whole fight. He's on the radios. The radios are going crazy and everything, and we're hearing this, and we're like, "What the hell is going on?" And he's running around. He's talking in Thai on the thing, da da da. And it turned out that the Burmese military heard our whole entire thing that was going on, and they couldn't tell where it was happening, but they just started launching mortars over the border in the direction of whatever was going on. And so like I'm like, yo, dude, we actually started a border war in Thailand. It's like,
what?
so the following day, after that, the following day, they were like, yo, we're going home. Everybody's out of here. You're back to the hotel.
Jeez.
But by then we all had an incredible experience. I got this great photo that we took with all of our guys we were with. There was maybe 12 or 14 of us total or something, but it's a photo. It's in black and white, and we're all in our, like, on day 3, we're just filthy and disgusting, and it looks like an authentic photo from Vietnam. It's like, I mean, legit. It looks like the real deal. But so that was just the start of the whole entire production. That was what launched it into production. It was an incredible experience.
That's wild, man. So I mean, I have to ask. A lot of times, you were just mentioning such an incredible ensemble. Yourself, Dennis Leary, as you mentioned, Danny Glover, the late, Ray Liotta as well. Can you talk a bit about that too? Because I mean, a lot of times when you're on sets, and you can attest to this, whether you are, at the top of the call sheet, or, if you're slightly below it, as one of the co-stars, those sets don't really run and well or smoothly unless, your leads are kind of setting that tone. So, and speaking to that with this film, where I would imagine that it was Glover and Liotta, how was that set of having them as your leads and kind of setting that tone? I mean, you already mentioned that story with Leary, but were there any instances of that, of them as your leads in that film?
Yeah, well, yeah, I know the late great Ray Liotta. He used to have a wild streak in him, and during this time period, I mean, he was over there with his fiance. Everything was really cool. I mean, it was the very, very, very professional version of the Ray Liotta you expect, and he what a great guy. Very, very down to earth. Same with Danny Glover. It's odd because Danny Glover, I actually was nominated against him when I was nominated for the Emmy back. He was nominated for Lonesome Dove, and we were nominated against each other. I think it was Armand Asante that won that year. I believe so, if I recall. But anyway, so it was cool to be working with him, because I'd seen him at the Emmys, obviously, and met him back then. And then I was working with him on Operation Dumbo Drop for such a long period of time. And I had a place in Toluca Lake as well, and that's where his offices were. And so I used to run into him quite often in Toluca Lake too. And he was always so gracious and so happy to see me. And I was like, that's so cool, man. It was because it was such a great experience. But with those guys, not so much. I mean, Dennis was pretty much the wild card, besides myself, maybe. But Dennis was pretty much the wild card. He was such a character. It's being a stand-up comedian. He took his stand-up on the road with him, like 24/7, and being in what's called a third world country. It's such a silly title, but the country itself, it's a totally different world that you're living in than what he's used to in the US. And so every day was a stand-up routine. And after we had gotten back from that military training, about our second week in Thailand, we had just started shooting, and they ran. I don't know if they ran out of Jameson at the hotel bar, or he drank them out of Jameson. He says they ran out of Jameson. I think he drank them out of Jameson. But because you don't just run out of something
Yeah.
arbitrarily, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
So
Right.
so he was complaining every morning about like, hey, I can't believe this. You know, I'm over here. They say, you know, they can't get more Jameson for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So I've been here 2 weeks. They throw me in the jungle the first day I get off the plane. He does this whole routine. He's like, now I can't even have a Jameson after work and all this stuff. So I was like, this has got to end. I got to figure this out. I can't take this for another couple of weeks until they get some Jameson at the freaking bar. So I headed out, and we were in this town called Olongapo. Oh no, not Olongapo. In Mahong Son. Olongapo is in the Philippines. We were in Mahong Son, which is up near Burma, and it's a very small town, maybe like 30,000 people in the town, but it's got a lot of Buddhist monasteries around it in the mountains, and so that's its main thing is tourism by the more adventurous types. But we were at a gorgeous hotel. It was a very, very unique hotel spa way up there in the mountains. But so I went out around this little tiny town, and I went everywhere that you could possibly imagine that they might sell, alcohol,
Yeah.
and tried to find him a bottle of Jameson. And there was one liquor store in town, and I had already been to it. That was the first place I went to, and they didn't have any. They searched high and low, and they didn't have any. And so then I went to all the other smaller hotels, the one other bigger hotel. I was trying to, I was like, I don't care. I'll pay 3 times the amount of this bottle.
Right.
Just let me buy it from you. And
Yeah.
and no one had any Jameson. And so very distraught, I was heading back through town, and I passed by that same liquor store. And in the window, they had this huge display of all of their booze on these shelves on the other side of the window.
Yeah.
And way down in the very bottom corner, just barely poking up above the glass, where it disappears down below the window ledge, I see the very top of a cardboard box for a Jameson, the green and gold or whatever it is. And I was like, there's no way that there's a bottle in there. I mean, so I went inside. They dug all these bottles out to get to this one bottle. They finally get to it. Sure enough, it has a bottle of Jameson in it. So I'm like, oh, this is just brilliant. So I buy a bow, and I stick the bow on it, and I get to the hotel, and his room was at the very end of this long hallway. So I sneak down the hallway. I set the bottle with the bow on top of it outside of his room. I knock, and then I take off, and I run all the way down the hall, and I hide around the corner. So I'm hiding around the corner, and I hear the door open and the chain latch. And I'm like, what the hell? I just hear this boom, ching, and I
Right.
kind of like peek around the corner a tiny bit, and all I see is this hand come out of the crack of the door, grab the box, and then it disappears back inside the room, and the door shuts. And I was
That's
like, okay, that's some weird shit, right? I was like, that's a trip. And so I'm so excited about this though, because I'm like, he's going to go on. I'm not going to tell him that it was me that gave it to him. And I'm just going to relish in the joy of the mystery of him every single morning talking about some angel who came and delivered him this bottle of Jameson. Right. So the next day comes, he doesn't say a word about it. Not a word about it. And then the next day, and then the next day, and then a week passes. And then 2 weeks pass. And I swear to God, and he has not said one word about the mysterious gift of the bottle of Jameson at
right.
all. And now it's eating me alive. I am like, well, how dare this guy, you know what I mean? Not want to know who gave him the bottle of Jameson. And I swear it had to be 3 months into the shoot. And like I said, we were over there almost 6 months, but it was like 3 months into the shoot. And I'm sitting there in the morning in hair and makeup, and Dennis comes in, just walks in, goes and sits down over on the other side of the makeup trailer, and I'm just stewing. And I said, "Hey, Dennis, and that's all I got out of my mouth. I said, "Hey, Dennis, and he goes, yeah, I know. You gave me the bottle of Jameson. When you knocked on the door, I looked through the peephole and could see you running down the hall and hiding around the corner." And I was like, you
He
son of a
didn't say anything the
bitch.
whole time.
And so he knew that I knew that he, think that I didn't know that he knew,
And he just let
and
you
so
stew.
he
He just let
knew that
you stew.
I was stewing, when that's what, because he knew that I wanted him to be the one that was like, who did this? And now,
Right.
it was so hilarious. What a bastard. Yeah, he was the most memorable to work with, out of the whole team for sure.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Well, I mentioned at the top, just talking about just the legacy of the film, in that I feel like this is such a unique Disney film, because I don't know too many, like, kids films that deal with that setting of the Vietnam War, as, of course, as savage, as historically, so much that is known about that war. Yet within that, we have the story that is about ensuring promises and following through, and things like that. So uh outside of, like, everything that you've done, and then I'll also even mention this, because I'm not even sure that you may be aware of this or not, of just uh in terms of what it does as a period piece, because I guess from what I understand, the position that your character has, that Lawrence Farley has, is not even a commissioned position anymore. Apparently, it's I guess it's a
Oh,
SP
Spec
five. I think
Five,
it's called a Spec Five, Specialist Five.
Spec Five
Yeah,
Farley.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The
I don't
position
know
doesn't
about.
even exist anymore. Like, I guess it got decommissioned, or phased out in, like, the '80s. I guess it was only specific to that period of time.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that was an
Hmm.
interesting, like, factoid that I found out. But in terms of the other projects that you've been a part of, can you talk a bit about that, of kind of being in this kind of weird, I guess you could say, zeitgeist of this film, that outside of the setting that it deals with, manages to still tell a story that folks have responded to, obviously, even decades, generation later. So
Yeah.
uh I'm sure, whether you, with any events that you have gone to where that has come up, could you share that?
I mean, just in reference to that specific movie, but Operation Dumbo Drop specifically, though, it was it was the amount of time that we had to work on it that was so magical. Only on the biggest of the biggest films do you get to be on set for 3 to 6 or more months, and
Sure.
but even when I was even on TV movies back in the 80s and 90s, there was still a lot more attention to, you know, uh, giving a project space to breathe so that you have time to make it, without being on too tight of a schedule. But we were still shooting in film back then, so we had
Yeah.
to we had to calculate the turnaround of changing over the film, and then obviously on the post production, that's a whole different story. But so that was time consuming as well, having to change the film over. So when it went from film to digital, that obviously decreased the amount of physical production time necessary to make a movie. Um, but on that one, it was just, when you have that much time on a project with that interesting of a group of people, almost the entire film crew was Australian and Thai, because Simon Windsor, the director, is Australian, and he's a fantastic director, just such a jovial type fellow, never was stressed out. And but when you look at a call sheet and it says you're filming 3.5 pages today, or it says like a page and a half. I mean,
Yeah.
on these other movies I'm doing, because like I was just saying, the TV movies back in the day, we still had 5 6 weeks, sometimes even longer, to do a TV movie, and then nowadays when you're shooting one of these Lifetime movies, it's 10 or 12 days, not
Yeah.
not weeks. You have like 2 weeks. You have to finish this film. It's what? And you look and it's like 11, 12 pages on a call sheet. And so, harkening back to Operation Dumbo Drop and some other projects, obviously I've done. on the larger budget side, when you look down in the call sheet and it says, you're shooting 2 pages or 2.5 pages. Yeah, there's a lot that's going on there. We have an elephant, and we got to get the elephant on the boat, off the boat. We got to get the boat out in the water. We got to get the trailing boats out there. Oh, is there a helicopter shot? We got to get the helicopter up. We got to turn the boat around. We got to get the boat back to its original starting position. So literally, to shoot the elephant, they get the elephant on the boat. The boat takes off and goes up the river and passes under a bridge. That right there can be almost an entire day just shooting that.
Yep. Yep.
So our day, like there's a sequence that's with the elephant on the boat on the river, and the sequence itself has a runtime of maybe 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max, somewhere around there. But we must have shot that sequence for 6 days, something like that. You know what I mean? Maybe longer. You know what I mean? Because there was a bunch of different moving parts to that. There was when we getting the elephant on the boat, getting the boat off, off out of the water, then sailing up and down, sailing up the river, being, getting run into by the Viet Cong, them shooting mortars at us, the special effects explosion stuff. And then the whole time, you also, if the elephant is getting nauseous from being on the boat, then you got to pull the boat over. They got to let the elephant off for a while, let it graze around. I mean, it was like a vacation. I'm like, dude, I have one line of dialogue today, and and this, so it was a great time. There was a lot of just lounging around, reading. I brought a bunch of books with me and reading, and then with the days off, a lot of exploring. Became close friends with some of the guys on the crew, and we'd go out and just mainly hitting up all the different Buddhist temples and monasteries and some historical sites. But it was just a magical experience, man. I loved it.
I was going to say, and I'm sure it was also interesting because we didn't even dive into this, just the idea of where technology and visual effects were at that time, where I know even outside of having, your live elephant, there was animatronic elephant, and then you also had your static elephants for certain things that you guys shot. So I'm sure that stretched things out as well.
Yeah, most everything was all practical. Most everything was all practical. The only real stuff we did green screen was in Los Angeles. They had the whole of one of those C-137s or whatever. They had the big interior airplane set, and because the real elephant wouldn't fit in the back of one of those planes, there you can't get them in. The back flap doesn't lower enough to be able to get the elephant in unless it's laying down.
Got it.
Yeah, which was a trip. So we shot all the interior stuff in Los Angeles, and then there was some green screen stuff for the parachuting sequences and things like that. So there was a little bit of green screen work that we did in LA, but everything else, I mean, you're talking 98% of the rest of it is all practical effects, and that's obviously time consuming as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally dropped a freaking fake elephant out of the back of a C-130 with a parachute in the middle of the jungle inside of a crate, with other stuntmen, and they had those old school parachutes, which you are
Wow.
not,
Yeah.
you can't. I mean, from what they were telling me, those things kind of just go wherever they go. You have a limited amount of control steering those things, to get them to land where
Yeah.
you want. But yeah, so it was wild, man. We did some, and the sets that they built were incredible. There was one village that they built, like literally, I don't know if they added on to a village that was already there, or they built the entire thing from scratch, because it looked like it had been there for 300 years, but they built this village there, and it was just exquisite. It was a beautifully built village, well, very well thought out, and they left it for them. They left it for the people that lived up there. Literally, they built a village. The film production did one of several villages they built, but they built them in such a way that they were sturdy, stable. They weren't just they were set pieces, and then they left them, and these people got to live in these houses. It was crazy. So there was something pretty cool about that aspect of the production too. That we weren't just there taking advantage of the environments and just building stuff and then tearing it down and just taking off, but building and leaving things. So with the two different villages that they added on to, they expanded these villages considerably and probably changed the livelihoods of the folks that lived there in a positive way that it's probably enduring to this very day.
Wow. Wow. Well, I feel like that's a great segue into getting into our final segment to wrap up, which is always fun because you get a different answer all the time. But getting into looking back on this film, you discussed and brought up, different instances, but what you're most proud of, with this project, and maybe something that you wish you could have done differently or had an opportunity if you were to revisit it, or if you were in that moment again to have the opportunity to do. And you can do it in either order you like. So what you're most proud of or what you would do differently.
Yeah, man. The elephant, Ty was the elephant's name, and she was brought over from the U.S. They brought the elephant all the way from the U.S. to Thailand for this movie. It was planes, trains, and automobiles to get this elephant around. So you got to consider that part of it too was a slow process, moving all over Thailand. But the elephant was incredible. I got that was one of the other magical aspects of working on this particular production, is that my character specifically, was kind of put in charge of the elephant for a time period. And it was, and I could ride it anytime I wanted to go hang out with the elephant. He said, look, the more familiar you can become with the elephant, the better off everything will be. The elephant will get to know you and get to like it. And man, elephants are magical. They're just, I don't know what to say about them, but there's something else going on with them. They are magical creatures. There's something happening inside there that is deeper than we give them credit for. But that was a really incredible experience. Something what I might do different, when they did the premiere for the cast and crew and the producers and all of that stuff, I had plans to go to a club with some of my buddies afterwards. So I just took my buddies there with me, and my buddies were a little rowdy and not that. Yeah, man. I tried to tell them ahead of time, like, this is a real business function. We just got to be real cool, and they had already had had just finished off a bottle of Hennessy before so when I picked them up, they were on one. They were, they were having fun. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I took them to this industry screening, and they just, it wasn't a good look for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And and so I had to just roll with it. But that's the only thing that I would have changed, is I would have picked them up after the screening.
Sure.
But because it was all the execs were there, all the people from Disney were there, all the you know what I mean. That's where you want to shine brightest, and look the cleanest, and and act the most respectable, and put the face on, and and they brought the pre-party to the to the screening, and we're a little obnoxious, obnoxious, just obnoxious enough to where I was like, yo, we got to get out of here. Let's go. We're going. Let's go. They're like, yeah, but what do you mean there's a free bar? And I'm like, not for you.
Nope.
Not for you. We're out of here. Come on. That's
Gotcha.
what that's the only thing I would have done different, because I probably would have ended up in another half a dozen Disney movies after that one came out, if I hadn't brought them to the screening.
Got it. Got it. Well, Corin, it's always a pleasure, having you on the show, man. Reflecting on all these, projects, as I said, in your career. Before I let you go, can you let folks know where they can find you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, they can find me across almost most of the primary not media platforms, social networking platforms, X and Twitter. I'm sorry, X and Facebook and Instagram. It's the letter I, the letter M, and then my name, Corin Nemec. So I am Corin Nemec, and that's the same across all those. Or you can just Google me and you track me down. I'll see you on the interwebs.
Right, right, exactly. So again, I want to thank Corin for hopping on and reflecting on. Gosh, this is crazy. I'm 30 years, 30th
Dude,
anniversary
I
of
didn't want to think about it. That's crazy.
Operation Dumbo Drop. But still awesome.
Wow.
But you can find me at Brandon Troy ENT on X and Brandon Troy _ ENT on Instagram. That out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see y'all soon, folks. Bye now.
Yeah.